Oi, peraí, Shetodorpanamarjanam Bhavamahadavagninirvapanam Shreyakaravachandrika Vidhanam Vidyavadanivaram Anandam Gurunivadhanam Pratipadam Punamritasvadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Nam Hari Bahudani Jasarva Shakti Karpita Niyamita Smaranena Kala Yitadrashi Tavakriva Bhagavan Mamapi Durdayani Krishami Hajani Anurata Trinadapi Sunichena Turamarapi Sagishuna Amanena Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagadish Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahaitaki Pai Vainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishameva Buddha Kripaya Tavapada Pankaja Sritaduli Sadvisham Vachintaya Mayanam Galada Shrudaraya Vadanam Gadada Rudara Punakarnichitam Vapukada Tavanama Brahadi Bhavishyati Yugaitam Namishena Chakshusha Pravisaitam Shunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Vidahiname Aslishtava Padavratam Punashtamam Adarshanam Marahatam Kurotuva Yatatava Vidatatu Rampato Matprananatastu Sahevana Para. Chanting from Upadesamrta. Vacho vegam manasa krudo vegam jiva vegam udarapasta vegam etan veganyo visaheta dira sarvam apimam prativim sasishyat ajahara priyasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangaschaloyam cha sadbir bhaktir vinashyati Utsahan nishchayat daryat tat tat karma pavartanat sangatvagat sato vritti sadbir bhakti prasiddhati tadati pratikrinati guya vakyati prichti bhumte bonjayati chaiva sadvidam priti lakshanam Majana Trimanandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chakshur Militanyi Natasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Panchakavatu Vishcha Pivasinnavi Vacha Patitana Pamanebhyo Vaishnavijya Namo Namaha. So, good evening.
Good evening.
Change in the weather.
A good one.
Okay.
We needed rain.
And you like to be chilly. Is that right?
I do. I'm always chilly.
All right. So, well, let's try to warm your heart then. With some good association. So we're discussing Upadesamrta. According to the commentary of Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving in essays, were published in Sajjana Toshini, and later compiled into a book, Sri Bhaktyaloka. His essays were 8 in number, consisting of 12, consisting of the 6 items favorable and the 6 items which are not favorable to culturing our devotional practice. So this based on Rupa Goswami's Upadesamrta and dealing with the 2nd and 3rd verses. 6 items unfavorable, 6 items favorable. However, we noticed that he covered the first verse in describing, I forget which item, but he covered Vacha Vegam Manasra Kroda Vegam, which is the specific characteristics for control of the senses, and that are characteristic of a true sadhu. He's not carried away by things of this world, but rather he has higher intent and higher emotion, and material emotion is not affecting him. And seeing this characteristic, we can make a pretty good determination as to who can impart to us valuable knowledge of a nature that of our true self, that of the spirit. our spiritual being, our spiritual well-being. So, coming on to the third verse of Upadesamrta, dealing with items which are favorable for devotional practice. So, Utsahan Nischaya Daryat, enthusiasm, confidence, patience, and we'll continue this evening with the discussion of, Tat Tat Karma Pavartanat, following specific prescriptions of devotional practice. Of course, that's good for us. And those prescriptions can be taken on as we can try to do every one. Rupa Goswami listed 64, or we can do one. That's how powerful bhakti is. That bhakti, when applied properly, is so transcendently potent that any one of these 64 items, or 9 items, as given in the Bhagavatam, or 5 items, as given in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, or Bhakti Vinod, basically says if you chant Hare Krishna and stay in the association of the sadhus, that in and of itself is sufficient. Kind of a trick in that, because when you're with the sadhus, they are basically following all these, and in their association, this will rub off. So it's not really a cheating. And if it is a cheating, then we'll take this cheating any way we can get it. So, Tat Karma Pavartanat, some activities which are good to soften our heart and strengthen our resolve to move forward in developing love in a way that it's fulfilling to us. So now we come again to this interesting item of giving up bad association, which already has been mentioned as one of the things we shouldn't do. And now we're talking about the things we should do, and we should give up bad association. Okay, it's an important thing then. This is association. Sangha. Sangha, good association or bad association. As we discussed in the last class, this association in his commentary, Bhaktivinoda Thakur looks at as in 4 elements. So 2 elements dealing with specifically individuals we associate with and their mentalities and how those will negatively impact devotional practice, and association of propensities born of our involvement in the modes of material nature. So propensity, and he refers to those propensities, those 2 propensities, as primordial, old, been around with us for a long time, and current, contemporary. So we're practically to the end of the items. We've covered 6, and now we've covered another 4. We're on the 5th, and there's only one more, which is following the great Mahajans. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Bhaktyaloka, or in these essays, he, in dealing with this item, good association, he brings up the next verse from Upadesamrta. That verse being, how does one express loving affection? And to whom does one share that affection? And in that way, he highlights the fourth verse of Upadesamrta. So our fourth verse is what? Dadati pratigrinati guyamakyati prichte bhakte bonjayate chaiva sadvidam pritilaksana. So dadati, giving away some charity. Pratigrinati, accepting some charity, giving and accepting of charity. Guyam, what's guyam mean? Secret, confidential, something you hold close to your heart, something that's of real substance to you. So, and we notice that in the discourse of Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna brings this guyam up to Arjuna in a few places. Just in the beginning, it's just guyam. Let me tell you about this. If you can understand this devotional service, this is in the very heart of Bhagavad Gita. Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam. So this knowledge is the most secret of all secrets. It's the purest knowledge because it gives direct perception of what you really are. It's the perfection of religion. It's everlastingly and joyfully performed. And later in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, he tells Arjuna, "You are so very dear to me. This is really what our relationship is about. No one can know the depth of our loving relationship with one another except the bhakti." So this bhakti, this is the most secret, loving thing that one can have. So in this context, guyamakyati prichyati, this secret is expressing ourselves in confidence in matters that are of significance, in confidence in matters that really mean something that is lasting, everlasting, to a loving relationship. So we express in confidence the secret knowledge to those that we truly have affection for. And we accept this knowledge, we hear it. So giving knowledge and confidence and accepting that confidential knowledge. What's accepting mean? Well, accepting means we're taking the knowledge, but we're also applying the knowledge, because that's the really show of affection that's necessary. So we're giving knowledge and we're expecting those that we're sharing this knowledge with to apply it. And when we hear knowledge, then it needs to be applied. And then this is a perfect loving relationship. This shows. We show that we care by giving knowledge which is of true value, that will truly benefit. And when we accept knowledge from the sadhus, from the devotees, we apply that knowledge in our lives so that they can see the results of their love for us. My favorite, of course, is this next two exchanges of love. Bhakte bojayate chaiva. We give some prasadam and we take some prasadam. So what more of a way to express your love than cooking and taking that cooking? What to speak of the fact that the cooking is for Krishna. and for his representative. And then we take it, and it's not only nourishing, it not only quenches our hunger so that it subsides, but it also purifies our existence. So these 6 exchanges of love, Prithilaksana, this loving exchange needs to be done in the proper association. So in that context, Bhaktivinoda Thakur presents this verse of Upadesamrta when speaking of Sangatwaga. So 4 items. He's broken it down. And then he goes on to elaborate on association. So the 4 items are: what is bad association for us? Bad association is the materialist. They come in different flavors. Why is it bad? Because in their association, we develop material tendencies. Can we avoid materialists? No. We're here. We have to deal with people. Not everyone's a devotee. And not every devotee is of the same caliber. Not every devotee has the same qualification, and not every devotee will have the same effect. But these loving exchanges, therefore, are conducted according to the devotees we associate with. But what's important is we love all devotees. So we discriminate up to the point that we need to in order to maintain our firm spiritual progress. I'll just say it crudely. Let's just take a crude example. There can be a young devotee, new or coming back, born in a Vaisnava family, but still young, and he has some bad habits. But when he comes into the temple, he's respectful to the deities, respectful to the devotees, respectful to the sadhus. So he has that respect, and he loves kirtan. He's good at it. Maybe a little prideful, because all young men or women have that in them. It's part of our nature at that age. So we will accept his association and in a way that's appropriate. But when he goes out of the temple and takes on his bad habits, we will not associate with him during that time. But during the good time of kirtan and hearing from the sadhus, we'll sit, we'll be in association, we will take prasadam, but we're not going to associate when there's still some anartha being displayed in his character. But we should know we need to have good discrimination, and we need to have good sambandha gyan. We need to understand how the process works so that such a devotee is respected. We respect him. We respect him within our mind fully. But there's social etiquette. And the social etiquette is, well, there's some bad habits. So we follow some etiquette there in such a way that we give good example. So we're not going to yuck it up. We're not going to engage in prajalpa. We're probably not going to walk behind the temple and engage in some anartha. That's not the kind of association that will be beneficial to him or to us. But we respect in our mind any devotee, especially one who has made the commitment to pursue his spiritual life, even though there is still some anartha. He has made a commitment. I am accepting my spiritual master. I'm accepting the sadhu. I'm going to make Krishna the center of my activities. Then Krishna has accepted him as good as himself. The anarthas, those things will fall away. as we discussed last time. It will go away in a puff of smoke. So, this is important to understand this. The unripe mango is still a mango, and in due course of time, it will become ripe. And if we look at all devotees and we respect all devotees in that consciousness, then there will be no Vaishnava aparad. Then we will not bring in the material consciousness that Bhaktivinoda says this is definitely bad association. Those people that have no respect for Krishna, they have no respect for devotional service, they have no respect for the devotees. Their intent, their prayojan, what their ultimate objective is. Well, for the jnani, their ultimate objective is what? Is they want to merge, they want to be the supreme. If they take up some devotional practice, once they have attained their goal, it's immediately discarded. The karmi, he may follow the laws of karma kanda section of even the Vedas, but his objective is material enjoyment. So he's going to get material enjoyment, and he may use bhakti, bhakti mishra karma, mix in a little bhakti to make sure he gets his karma. And the yogi, well, the yogi kind of goes both ways. Some yogis want what the jnanis want. They want liberation. And then there's other yogis that want what the karmis want, but in spades. So they go for the siddhas. So they want the heavenly planets, and they want full control of the heavenly planets. So they want all these mystical powers, so that they can control other people's minds, they can go wherever they want, they can have whatever they want. So they're like supercharged karmis. And there's other yogis, they want the liberation. But all of these paths, whether they be the jnani or the karmi or the yogi, if there is some sadhu association, it can all change in a heartbeat. So this is the position of the Madhyam. Madhyamadhikari comes and he gives his association for the benefit of suffering humanity. This is the rare opportunity provided to the jiva who's come to the human form of life to take to bhakti. So Bhaktivinoda, in one sense, he talks about these materialists with these objectives which have no interest in bhakti. These are not going to be good for us, this association. And then he goes on to explain also the association of those who will further our taste for sense gratification. Be it a man or a woman. Of course, the sadhus always, they say woman. So, Stri Sangha, we don't associate with women. Well, when they're saying there, they mean we don't associate with our senses in an exploitive way, whether we're in a man's or a woman's body. Sense gratification is there in both those bodies. So, who is the non-devotee? I'm sure we can figure that out. Bhaktivinoda says at one point, if one associates with these non-devotees, then in a very short time one's intelligence is polluted and one's heart is overcome by their propensities. Their propensities become our propensities. Then he talks about specifically the fact that the devotee in life can't give up all mundane association. Both the renunciates or the householders, in both instances, there's regular worldly affairs. So in those worldly affairs, how do we deal with those people? And for the renunciate, he must basically, he's free of most of the difficulties, but he still has to go out and associate. He still has to beg. Without begging, he won't be able to eat. That's the nature of a renunciate. So he has to discriminate where foodstuffs are taken. And for the householder, well, the householder has to engage in such a way that his worldly association is kept to a minimum. Bhaktivinoda uses an interesting approach here. He does say something to the effect that in the householder's worldly association, it should be done just as you would do commerce in the marketplace. The basic point he's trying to get across when discussing giving up bad association and accepting good association is the concept, and he introduces this in bringing forth and pulling in the fourth verse, okay, of loving exchanges, of you associate with people either with love or just in a normal exchange. So those that are devotees, there has to be love. Love means what? Deep appreciation. Love means something that's meaningful. Love means exchanging with the devotees in the ways prescribed by Rupa Goswami's fourth verse of Upadesamrta. Then he goes on and he discusses what he calls prejudice. Prejudice being we have a certain propensity, we have a certain way that we are conditioned. Another word that could be used that we're familiar with is samskara. So we come into life and we have samskaras coming from prior life, and we have samskaras that we develop in the current environment towards material affairs, towards material enjoyment. So four distinct areas, two related to association and two related to propensities, prejudice, preoccupied, we're predisposed would be another way to put it. He uses the word prejudice. We could say we're predisposed to have a certain way that we want to enjoy the material nature, coming from past life and then also in our current environment, what it's affecting us to enjoy in a certain way. And that's determined by who we associate, what we associate with. Now we know from Madhurya Kadambini and Vishwanath's presentation there that if you look at the beginning of devotional practice, these associations relative to material propensities are naturally diminished. in the stage of anartha-nivritti, the stage of the cleansing of the heart. These things naturally fall away. But here we're talking about a different context. This book, Upadesamrta, is something that's, and he brings up a point, and it's very nice the way he presents it. Upadesamrta is a very small book, 11 verses, very condensed. I think it's 11, isn't it? Mm-hmm. 11 verses, so very. Now, and he says something very interesting in his discussion here in the essay. He says, when there is something that's, when you are in light consciousness, when you're speaking in confidences, when you're, quote, on the same page, then there's no need for voluminous literature. You can convey your points very simply. The other party will immediately understand what you're talking about because of your intimacy, because of the way you're expressing it, and because they know you as you know them. So therefore, when he looks at Upadesamrita, he says, now this is a real offering of love that in such small, condensed language, because it's directed towards the devotees, they can immediately take the essence. They are so inclined to immediately be able to pull the essence from this simple presentation. And Upadesamrita covers the whole gamut, from beginning to the most high topics of living on the Kund, to simply living there your whole life, engaging in bhajan and meditating on the daily pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So how intimate is that? How secret is that? How significant is that? That in such a small presentation, we have so much knowledge. He talks a little bit about the fact that until one is fully saturated in devotional practice, we have to follow the regulations of varnashram. We have to follow those practices according to our nature. We have a nature within the material realm. Some are inclined to work in one way, others are inclined in another way. And according to our inclination, we have to follow that. We need to be sincere in our spiritual pursuit, and that sincerity needs to be directed towards a pure lifestyle that's favorable to our spiritual culture. He puts it in an interesting way. He says, well, if you look at Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we're kind of going forward a little bit into the next part of the discourse, where he's talking about following in the footsteps of the great devotees. So he speaks about the fact that even though in Sri Chaitanya's discourse with Ramananda Roy, we can see that when he's talking about pure unalloyed devotional service, Ramananda Roy is saying, well, okay, tell me, how do we attain this? Ramananda starts giving the prescriptions. And he gives the prescription, well, you have to follow the Varnashram Dharma to to progress. And Lord Chaitanya rejects that. Bhaktivinoda says, well, yeah, he rejects it, but how did he act in his life? We see that he was a householder and he followed the regulation of household life. And when he took sannyas, he followed strictly, so strictly that the people that were sannyasis of the highest order were a little bit set back. It's horrible how seriously he took this sannyas. So difficult. That Lord Chaitanya's austere level of sannyas and austerity could make those that were considered the most strict sannyasis themselves take pause. So he mentions here, only sadhu sangha can reform the attachment to prejudices. We talked about the two prejudices. Unless you can reform, and here we're talking about reforming ourselves in such a way that the prejudices are dealt with, we can't take to full, it's the only, unless you reform your attachments to these various inclinations, material tendencies, one cannot attain perfection in devotional service by any means. Quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam, Sangoya Samstriste Hetur. Association for sense gratification is certainly the path of bondage, but the same type of association performed with a saintly person leads to the path of liberation, even if performed without knowledge. A quote from Uddhava Gita again. He quotes through Bhaktyaloka many times from Uddhava Gita. Krishna is instructing Uddhava. By associating with my pure devotee, one can destroy one's attachment for all objects of material sense gratification. Such purifying association brings me under the control of my devotee. And then Krishna goes on to tell Uddhava, and he in detail all the things, all the practices within this world, all the practices which we would think would be beneficial to us. He lists them all: charity, carrying out severe public welfare, chanting the Vedas, performing penances, taking to the renounced order, so many things. But even by performing such activities, one does not bring me under his control. But the bhakti, simply by associating with the sadhu, Krishna is purchased. That's the power of bhakti. So this is in Krishna's instructions to Uddhava in the 11th canto. And it's a very interesting quote here that he mentions from Ramanujacharya. And it's very sweet. If you cannot purify yourself by any endeavor whatsoever, just can't do any of them. They're not working. If you cannot purify yourself by any endeavor whatsoever, then just go sit with the Vaishnavas and you will achieve all auspiciousness. We kind of jumped into the Dadati Pratigridati. Loving exchange has to be conducted with the devotees. That love makes it work. I mean, there's no, if you just look at Ramanuja's statement, you put it in perspective, how significant is that? If nothing else can be done, just being with the devotees, just being with the sadhus, just sit there, refuse to leave. I will not give up. Whatever I have to do, and we've talked about this before, whatever I have to do, just to allow them to allow me to stay in their association, at least let me be able to do that much. At least let me perform that much that they will not kick me away. That they will not force me out of their association, that I may not be so offensive that they cannot tolerate my presence anymore. If we can think like that, if we can take that kind of a mentality into that association of the devotees, if we can take the association of the sadhus with that mentality, we are assured of success in devotional practice. That alone will be our success in life. This material life, this human form of life, will be perfect just by that association. If you can do it without giving it up. Because in that association, everything will come in to your practice. Throughout the Bhagavatam, we see it time and again. Even the most lowly of people in good association becomes saintly. Even the hunter that half killed the animals. Along comes a saint, and all of a sudden he's transformed. So much so that what? He won't even take the chance of harming a small insect. Now, how much valuable is that association? That maybe our intelligence is not so great. Maybe our austerities are not so great. Maybe our giving in charity is not so great. Maybe there's no quality that I have whatsoever. There's nothing great here. But simply I can stay in the association of the devotees. That association in and of itself will be sufficient for my spiritual progress. That mentality we need to adopt. That mentality, that sincerity of purpose, that no matter what, I will not give up this association. And wherever that association that nourishes my spiritual growth is, I will go there at all cost. I will give up all other association. I will give up all social pressures, whatever they may be. Nothing will stand between me and that association, which I know will take me to the right place spiritually. So, sadhu vriti, following the footsteps of the previous acharyas, is the last item. And in this, his discourse, his essay on this is very extensive. It very much deals with the time of his preaching. It's very centered around the implementation of varnashram in your life until the point that it is no longer needed. Um, it very much draws from the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the way that community of Vaishnavas who were the personal associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda conducted their Sangha, how they conducted their lives, how they utilized the directives of Varnashram and made it Daivi Varnashram, made it completely purified in such a way that it nurtured their spiritual growth in that association. So they followed what? They followed Varnashram as much as it was necessary to conduct their affairs, but it was transcendent Varnashram. He says something in there which gives us an indication. He says, we see in certain societies, we see what would not be recognized as Krishna's natural Varnashram system. He says, but if you look deeply, you will see in those societies where those nomenclatures are not used, there is still the seeds of what we would call Varnashram. What he's referring to there is if you look at human society, people have natural propensities. These are natural things. And it's stressed in the Vedas that Krishna himself says that the Brahmins are coming from my head, the Kshatriyas from my arms, the Vaishyas from my waist, Sudras from my legs. These are natural propensities of the humans to act in a particular way. We're not interested in Varnashram. We're interested in developing love for the Supreme Lord. But we must purify our activities and we must conduct ourselves in human society in such a way that there is a good example there. So, and we also, in understanding the time of Bhaktivinoda's preaching, his preaching effort at that time, he saw this, what was the period? The period was the time of the British are coming in with their flag. This is now my country. And you have all the culture of India is being threatened by this imposition. This foreign invader is coming in with his flag saying, no, we're going to follow the Queen. You can imagine someone of the character of Bhaktivinoda preaching in that time, having to stress to his audience the fact that we have a culture based on a gradual purification in all the classes of men up to the state of spirituality that will lead to an ending of all material suffering. We cannot abandon this. So it needs to be utilized. So there's some emphasis by him on this point. Today we look at Varnashram and we look at human society and we look at the society, especially Western society that we live in, and we say, of how much use is this Varnashram? It's gone to such a state that let us simply introduce spirituality in a way that people can take to the practice of devotional service in some way or another. very, very difficult. Although my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, coming to the Western world, he said, half my job is done. But we can see even 40 years, 50 years later after he departed, although he had this desire to institute Varnashram, how is it even feasible with the advancement of the decline of human civilization? This I don't know. This was of some importance to him, very significant. We cannot just simply dismiss it, but we've yet to see how the Gaudiya Vaishnavas have been very successful with this. So our stress is on presenting pure Krishna consciousness, presenting this philosophy in a way that it can attract people who are so inclined to it, to take to spiritual life, and to at least give an example, no matter what our propensities are, to recognize our propensities, to see where they fit into Krishna's Varnashram system, to live accordingly in a way that's an exemplar to society of both our actions in work and our devotion in love to the Supreme. In that way, we can give at least some example that if we have this propensity to be a learned teacher, or a propensity to be a protector, a propensity to be an administrator, a propensity to serve the other classes, if we use our propensity and act within that properly, then we can be an exemplar. And hopefully in seeing that, then there can be some upliftment. So it's a very, very deep subject, a very broad thing to try to understand how this can be implemented. But we understand the significance of Bhaktivinoda's writings, and we certainly bow down and worship the desire of the acharyas to uplift all of humanity to the highest standard of devotional practice. Although we ourselves are kind of at a loss as to how it can be accomplished at this point in time, we do know that this Krishna consciousness can be accomplished. We do know that we, in good association, we could give the best example of what is an exemplar of life, free from propensities that are contrary to our best interest and contrary to the best interest of humanity. That in itself is Daivi Varnashram. That is the highest standard. So much was there at the time of Bhaktivinoda, and much was there as far as caste, brahmanas, which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically was very much not about, didn't want to have that kind of a propensity. A man should be judged about according to his true qualities. And no matter where he's, whatever birth is there, his true qualities are one of significance. So I'll be giving one more class. We'll close out on this Bhaktyaloka on Thursday. We'll talk about following in the footsteps of the sadhus according to our capacity. We're going to talk about in that class understanding the sadhu in the context of the sampradaya. The sadhu does not live independent of the soul that nurtured his spiritual growth. So we'll touch upon that, because there's always this tendency that when the great acharyas come and they lead their students and then they depart, there's this tendency by their students to try to segregate them from the sampradaya, and that can sometimes not be in the best interest going forward. So we need to see it in perspective, that the acharyas, as significant as they are in the lives of their disciples, the significance of their disciples' lives takes precedent when they're no longer physically manifest. The significance falls to the next acharyas. This is so important to carrying on the Guru Parampara. So we're going to talk about that in the context of this last item, of following in the footsteps of the sadhu. That's what's required. That is one of the items that are favorable for devotional practice. It's a duty where one is duty bound, who has received a merciful dispensation of bhakti, to pass that bhakti on. And to not do so in the proper context of Guru Parampara has to be avoided at all costs. We're going to make one little change. I'm going to give classes on Tuesday and Thursday on philosophy, specifically Sambandha Gyan relative to our practice, these foundational books, Madhurya Kadambari, Bhaktyaloka, Upadesamrta, the stuff that helps build our spiritual character so that we can practice in a way that the sadhus will be very much inclined to give more and more. And Saturday we'll be discussing Leelas. So Saturday we'll give a class on some aspect of Krishna's Raj Leela, so that we can just branch out a little bit. So I'll stop for this evening. Any questions on what we discussed? Yes.
Just kind of clarifying, it was kind of like what my question was in online. So when we were talking about dealing with non-devotees, and so the householder keeps worldly association to a minimum, and then you were talking about how we either associate with love, which would be with the devotees, and I kind of like kept wanting to write something like I guess being polite, but that wasn't the word that you used. So we either associate with love or...
I think the other way to associate is Bhaktivinoda, of course, in day-to-day affairs with those that have truly no interest. Then it's as much as we have to, just to be cordial in our dealings. With those people that we see are innocent, again, we come to, there's also the application of the fact that we want, the nature of the devotee is one of compassion. So we're always going to try to put out a helping hand and introduce someone to spiritual life. So that's the position of the Madhyamadakari. So knowing our adhikari is one thing, knowing where we stand and knowing what we can do, but the Madhyamadakari, he has developed enough discrimination that he's able to know who the devotee is and take shelter of the devotees at their sangha. He's able to see who are the innocent and be able to try to help them in some way, having a compassionate nature towards them. He's able to see who the inimical, who is inimical, and of course, in that association, we keep things to a minimum. I don't know. Does that kind of address what your question is?
Yeah.
You had mentioned like commerce.
Bhaktivinoda
Yeah,
said
yeah.
like commerce. He kind of used the word like
Business.
what? How would you deal with somebody in the marketplace? I'll
Yeah.
take one of those. Or, it's a casual thing.
Be friendly, but
Yes,
Yeah,
of course it's
okay.
friendly. Devotees are friendly to everybody. Devotees are sweet to everyone.
Yeah.
They're the sweetest, but we don't want, we want to make sure it's if there's anything rubbing off, if we have a little bhakti and they have no bhakti, we want to make sure the bhakti's going that way. And the other stuff is staying away.
Okay, I get you.
Will you describe a little bit about, you talked about ancient samskaras and current samskaras. Can you describe a little bit more in detail about what those are and what the differences between the two are?
Those influences that affect us in this life, family we're born into. Now, of course, we're born into a particular family based on our prior lives, but the society we're born into, the nature of society at this time, those are current. The other are those samskaras that resulted in, I'm born in this country, so those influences, and he specifically talks about gyan there and yoga and karma, those influences but we can see what he's referring to. He's referring to ancient being, they're bringing us to a situation where we're born in a particular environment. But then within the environment itself, there are influences that are there once you arrive. So he looks at those things. Though that material association, he looks and he says there's two aspects of it. I think if we were to take it to more of the seeds of karma, the seeds of sinful activity, then we have prarabdha. We have influences coming to us, bijas, so they're seed influences, and then those will manifest more later. So I think you can also kind of see a little bit of that philosophy underneath what he's referring to as prejudices coming from prior lives and prejudices developed in the current environment, your current situation. Does that answer?
Mm-hmm. I heard Guru Maharaj. It sounds like what he said about sometimes you see people that have like a gyan approach to bhakti or a karma approach to bhakti. That sounds kind of like a samskara that's coming with
Yeah, a jhana approach to
way.
life. Yeah. Or karma, yes. We have these propensities coming from our material association. Our material association is both what we've experienced up to now and what we're experiencing now.
Can you give examples of those, someone the Jnana approach to bhakti and then kind of the karma approach to bhakti?
Well, Yeah,
I mean,
the one devotee is like, he may be more inclined to the intellectual end of things. He he's a bookworm. He thinks he can understand bhakti by just reading. If I just read all these books, if I just take in all this knowledge, then I'll know bhakti. Okay, and the other is like, if I just do all the service, then I'll be a bhakta. Whereas the bhakti that's developed a little adhikari, he's developed a little qualifications. Just if I could just associate with the devotees and please them in any way, yeah, that's it. That's my success. I don't need to read anything. I don't need to understand anything. I just understand that if I love these people and they will teach me how to love God because I can see they love God. So I want bhakti. That's my objective. So there's an approach. A jnana approach is, a little immature. I can read my way into spiritual realization. The karma approach, I can work my way into spiritual realization. And the bhakti approach is, once we become a little bit more qualified, then it's like, there's nothing I can do for bhakti, but somehow maybe if I stick around, maybe somebody will look favorably upon me and I'll get some mercy. So the bhakti approach is, let me stand in line for mercy. And be humble enough to stay, in that consciousness. The other is a little bit of material coming with us. I'm thinking I can knowledge my way into it, or I can work my way into it. But as we mature, we realize there's nothing we can do for it except just pray for it. Chant sincerely for it. Open our hearts up to it. Then it can come. Explain it. Anything else? A little long tonight. Sorry. Thank you for your association. Hare Krishna.
Dulal Chandra, Guru ki jai.